What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the Hype Mind. How do you talk to God? I asked myself this question the other day when I had a circumstance where I wanted some advice on, and I thought, who would I like to go to for advice? And I'd already gone to, one of my best friends and your favorite host, Daniel. I guess second favorite to me, but yeah, I said, dude, who would you go to it for advice? I was just curious who would come to mind for him that we both might know. And I think he was being funny, but he said God, and I thought, that's actually a really great idea. And so that's what I did. I decided, hey, I'm going to go to God for advice. But I approached it a specific way, and I think that made all the difference in the world. And so what I want to share with you is how to talk to God, how to go to God with your problems appropriately in a way that will be the most effective for getting results that benefit you. So here's what I did. When he said that, I chuckled, and I thought, I don't know if he's joking or not, but I like that idea, and so I'm going to do that. And so I spent a little bit of time thinking about what it looked like asking God for help or for advice, and for that. Because when I go to other people for advice, right, we all go to people for advice. I'm sure you have problems that you need advice for. And that's great, because a lot of times we forget that we have more people than we realize that we can turn to for advice. And so I spent some time dwelling on the appropriate way to do that and how I do that with others. And that's exactly the frame that I entered it from, right? I spoke to God. They say that prayer is a conversation with God. And so technically I was praying. I would count it as that. And because I framed it in the way I did, I would count it even more so as an appropriate prayer, not something that was coming from a place of victimhood or a place of dependency, or a place of expectation. And I treated it as if I was going to anybody else with this dilemma, right? I said, God, here's what I'm experiencing. Let me tell you the background story, right? Everybody believes that God knows and sees all if they believe in God, right? That's like the first thing they say. Oh, well, if God exists, then doesn't he know? If God exists, right? Cool. I'm sure that's true. I actually believe that's true. But you know what? I'm still not going to make assumptions, and I'm going to treat it as if I was talking to even the most wise person I know on earth, as if they don't know everything about my life, right? And this is a good place to say, maybe you don't believe in God. Maybe you believe in a higher power. Maybe you believe in some sort of invisible frequency. Maybe you believe in the universe. Whatever it is, whatever you might call that, I would say, great. This is how you communicate with the spiritual realm, with God, with the universe, whatever that looks like for you. For me, that's God. For you, you might know that as something else, and that's okay, because you can still communicate the same way. And so I approached it, again, from a place of saying, hey, here's what's going on in my life. Let me tell you about it as if you don't know. Let me share what's going on. Let me fill you in on the details. And then I said, what would you do about this? What would you do if you were in my shoes? Right? And that's what makes it so beautiful, is it's so simple, right? I dealt with this in the same way that I deal with any other times I'm looking for advice, solutions, some guidance, whatever, right? I might call up a friend and say, hey, Ron, A, B, and C happened to me. It seems like this is going on. I'm really looking for some pointers on this. What would you do? And that's exactly how I spoke to God. And I share this with you because I got answers. And some people might say, well, that's just because you opened yourself up to answers, or that's just because you allowed yourself to focus on the problem. Maybe, right? But I'm going to stick with what I do believe, and I'm going to stick with that because I asked for help from the universe, so to speak, from God, from a higher power. Those answers came to me because of that openness to guidance. And it was wonderful because it was really just the extra guidance I was looking for. It was like I'd heard other people's opinions and advice about this, and I liked it, and I liked what they had to say, but I wanted a little bit more. I wanted to see if there were any points of view I was missing. And one of the first things that came to mind was someone else I hadn't spoken to that I could call about this. And they shared with me a perspective that I completely hadn't thought about. And then after that phone conversation, I had the idea of putting together a letter that came from the heart to address the problem. And then I even thought of another person that I hadn't talked to in years that I realized would be right up the alley of offering some solid advice and opinion and perspective too. And so all in less than 24 hours, heck, I think it was all in less than 12 hours if I just about, I was filled with numerous perspectives, options, ideas, thoughts, and resources. And that was for a couple of reasons. That was because, one, I'd asked for help from God, right? I'd had a conversation with God. Two, I'd had an appropriate conversation with God, right? One that wasn't assuming he knew the story, demanding or expecting help. I approached it as if I was talking to a friend. Here's what happened. Here's what I'm assuming you don't know. I'm looking for advice. If you don't have advice, that's okay. But I'm open to any if you have some. And the answers came. And so I think one of the mistakes people make when they pray, when they try to connect with God, when they conversate, is they treat God like he's on a different playing field than them. And of course he is. I mean, we're imperfect and God isn't. God is perfect, So of course he's on, but treating the situation like that doesn't help us, right? Assuming he knows, having expectations, demanding things because God has the resources, right? Being like, well, God has all the knowledge there is to know, so obviously if he wanted to share it, like all these lousy attitudes, put him on your playing field and speak to him as if he was any other friend you'd go to, right? And that just allows you to approach the situation with complete authenticity. You don't have to fake things. You don't have to demand things. You don't have to expect things. You don't have to be someone you're not, and you don't have to do any of that stuff that I think a lot of times we make the mistake of doing. We sit there and we do exactly that. We treat ourselves like less. We treat ourselves like we can't do this without help. We treat ourselves like we're victims or being persecuted. And we place a lot of burden and expectation on others too when we put them on a level above ours. But just to be able to relate to God in that sense of saying, yes, I understand that you created me in your image. Yes, I understand you love me and you want me to love you. And so for that reason, I'm going to approach this as if I was approaching any other human being that I wanted some advice from, that I wanted some help from, that I wanted some knowledge from. And that made all the difference in the world for me. So I hope you learned something from this. If you did, smash that subscribe button. I can't even tell you how much I appreciate that. And I'll catch you in the future. Don't forget to conversate with God, especially if you believe he exists.